everybody.
Hi.
We're back. You can't get rid of us. We're back. So here is our episode 6. And we're back at home. We just arrived 2 days ago from our East Coast tour, which was quite amazing. It was also quite chaotic. And it was also a lot of work. So I'm not complaining, but I'm bitter on the inside. How did you like the East Coast, Foster?
It was very intense. We worked almost every day.
Every day. And
Lots of people.
Lots of issues. And as usual, our sessions and our tours are very inspirational. So I think that this would be an interesting episode, I think, to talk about. Despite doing everything that is written, despite everything that is instructed, why do your spells, your manifestations, your ideas not manifest or don't manifest the way you want? I call it, is it me or is it you? Or why is your spell just backfiring sometimes? So we had a lot of people this time on the East Coast who are dedicated students, and they're also on their own path, of course. And despite knowing what you can do, that the process, I think, of solving a situation in what we call reality is, it's not complicated. The concepts are always the same. But even they struggle with the result. And sometimes it goes really easy and really quick, and sometimes it doesn't seem to even, move anything on the outside world. So it would be interesting maybe for you guys to hear our perspective, how we are dealing with, when certain spells don't work out or seemingly don't work out.
Or intentions or prayers or whatever.
Right. And it's really true when it says in the Bible that the moment you need the most, God is the most silent. Typical, of course, But we want to give you our perspective here and our input and our inspiration of what we think you can do better, or that sometimes even the methodology goes against you. In other words, we have people also, right, Foster, who try shamanic healings or try shamanic techniques to manifest the healing, but they don't believe in the shamanism, or they think subconsciously it's really something weird, or how the hell did I get to that point where I have to be naked, in the middle of the dirt, in the middle of a forest, begging some forest spirit to heal me? You know what I mean? I think that is a very important element to understand. You cannot apply something if your inner self is against it. In what capacity? What do you think?
Whenever you have a contradiction to whatever you're asking for. So you ask for something, and then you say but. But is the contradiction.
Right.
Instead you say and. Or if your own life plan cannot be amended to include that, then you're in essence doing a kind of self-sabotaging. And sometimes
you're saying forcing something in.
Forcing something that really is not even in your life plan, not even in your purpose, nothing.
But we also agree that to a certain amount, we talked about this last time about karma, you can manipulate the energy within your frame to a certain degree.
Within a frame,
you see,
yes.
Look guys, we totally believe that everything is possible. And that is not even the question here. The thing is, where in your belief, in your conviction, do you believe you don't deserve it? Or you don't have a right to experience it? I think this is for me more important in alchemy and in hermetics. You see, you cannot make a horse into a donkey and vice versa. But you can make them both follow a path and follow their instinct, I think. And I think in magic, and I think in shamanism, in healing, in everything we want to manifest, your instinct is the key. And if something goes against your instinct, it just will have a really hard time manifesting.
There's also a time buffer. So sometimes it's just the timing is off.
Right.
Or it takes a longer time, or it takes a much shorter time.
Right.
And that also can be mirrored inside of a candle if you're doing candle magic.
Correct.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I think the timing problem is really when we wait for something to the last minute, you know, and I've seen this. I think this is the number one thing. Timing off means for me that people start to solve their issues or trying to solve their issues, manipulate the energy around it last minute, or if it's even too late. You know, that's when people come with full-blown cancer and say, okay, I tried everybody. Now you are the last wacky people I would come to, but, you know, I tried everything. Now I would eat dirt if it helps. And that is also too late sometimes.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so timing, I think, is important. That's why we always also say in Kabbalah, pre-plan your goal. Give yourself time. Give yourself the experience of this illusion that we call time, because we just believe so much in it, you know, and we literally live our biorhythm according to it, right? What do you think, Foster? From a shamanic point, how do you dissolve or how do you approach the idea of being, I don't want to say not worthy, but the sensation of I need to do God knows what in order to deserve something?
Well, that's unworthiness that you're talking
Yeah.
about. If people don't value themselves, they don't value what they're asking for, they don't value themselves or what they believe their lives can be, then you are in some way, again, in resistance to what you're asking for. And when you're in resistance, it could also be, you know, childhood programming, things you were taught, you know, dogmas that you believe in
School,
that are counteracting
upbringing.
whatever you're asking for. Then there's the question of, you talk about how you ask a spirit to protect you or just to be there, or you just give an offering without expecting anything in return. So you're not asking for anything.
He's already giving you a solution, guys, because I think that the number one thing in how to approach a desperate solution is, or situation is, don't ask for anything.
Just give the offering.
Just give the offering.
Light the candle.
Just give the offering with trust, and trust that, you know, higher being will understand and higher spirit will understand.
And things are taken care of all around you, and you're protected.
Yes, that is something that we need to emphasize here. From our individual practices, we are being taken care of, like it or not. And thank God, it's like when people say, does everybody have a guide? If we wouldn't have guides, we would be dead by now. We would all be already, you know, exterminated. We wouldn't last 5 minutes here. So the idea of being taken care of having this total faith that there is no level of favoritism or punishments or anything like this. You know, some people are lucky or more favored or more loved or more wanted or versus to others. This is just not something that exists.
Well, you talk about the lottery, that it is a kind of thing you put in. You say, I want to win the lottery, and then you have to wait in line.
Right.
And then there's a very long line.
Right.
And it could take lifetimes to win that lottery. So where are you on the line? That's another issue. Or, you know, some people get the lottery numbers in their sleep. We had a client who got it from his mother. He got all the winning numbers, and he won. And he still died within, you know, a few years after that.
Yeah.
So then we had other people who got the lottery and won, and they just spent all the money immediately and had no consciousness around it.
There's many. Well, the idea is I think is the second element. I think the second theme here after time, why something doesn't work out, is maturity.
Yes.
You see,
Maturity.
I think really that even your higher self knows that if you don't know how to handle a huge career, look, we lived in LA for 20 years. We had literally everybody, the A-listers who are fascinating and very nice, very cultured, most of them that we met. And then, you know, the people who had one little appearance in a show and God knows think who they are. It is amazing how these people suffer from the pressure that comes with the job. And you go out and become a model, you have to allow to be criticized for the body of work you do, literally the body, because that's the job, you see. So not everybody's made for it. And we met people and we tried to work with people who would have what we would say everything, the beauty, the money, the fame, the glory, the talent, even completely unhappy. Completely unhappy, and then you would see them go off in the most bizarre ways And we would always look at each other and say, what the hell is going on here?
Well, we always say
It's re-
approach a ritual always in a state of happiness or neutrality or at
Well,
least positivity
but-
before you're going into it. You don't want to go in a mood into
Or
a
last minute.
ritual or a last minute
Or
if you're
last
doing a
minute,
candle
exactly.
ceremony or you're praying or something. You have to actually elevate yourself
Right.
before going into it.
Right. But the idea is here, we're talking about maturity again. I think that when your higher self and your instinct just knows, you are not ready for this career, you can go in, but you will suffer the consequences of it, you see. Or winning the lottery. There are many examples of people who won money out of the blue. I knew somebody who won quite a bit of money in Germany in the lottery and basically took a taxi from the living room to the toilet and, so to speak, and tipped them 100 euros every time he,
Went through it all.
I mean, he went through it all in no time. In other words, you can experience something quite transformative. The question is, are you on the level of the maturity of the transformation? And so I really believe, first of all, if you're sending something out into the universe, it's out. It's out, and it will meet you in one of your realities that you occupy. In other words, a self of mine already, and Foster won. And so Foster won the lottery, because he has a good chart. But
Well,
it
I won
also
a few things, but only when I was a kid. Only until I was 9 years old.
Right.
And then it stopped. So I won everything before.
Because you
hundreds of
became an
things.
adult.
I
Right?
became an adult, and it wasn't as innocent anymore.
Innocent
It
anymore,
was-
exactly.
Then I became a healer. I started becoming
Right.
working in healing, and then I started to lose energy. Actually, much more, helping people actually lose quite a lot. Not of my own energy, but just in the whole process.
Yeah.
Then we wanted to move to Los Angeles.
Right.
So we hoped to move to Los Angeles, but we were living in Arizona. And so we came to Los Angeles to give some sessions, right? And we went to a hotel, and they all of a sudden astonished us by giving us the biggest suite, remember?
Right.
And
Oh,
we
yeah.
stayed in that suite, and we started to do a ritual. Because it was
Right.
so large, we said, we can do a ritual here. And in the middle of the ritual, the real estate agent, now we had already called a real estate agent to find us something. And then she called us and said, I found you the perfect house. I know you'll love it. You should move in. And that was our
Well,
story. And we stayed in that house for almost 20 years.
Actually, what Foster describes, he forgets, is that we saw the house already.
No, you never saw it.
I think we went
You
in
never
because
saw
she
it.
called to confirm that we were getting it.
Yeah, I saw the house later. Afterwards.
Right. Okay, I'm getting old.
But that's an idea of doing a ritual. And in the middle of a ritual of get the house, we actually got the house.
Right.
And everything was there. The money we made happened. Everything happened right away.
Work happened. But we stayed 20 years there. We stayed 20 years, which is 2 cycles, basically. And I think what is very important is we were ready to move. We were ready to go. We were all packed up, no question. It was, the readiness, right? That was the idea. The ritual in that moment just amplified it. And basically, literally in the ritual, I'm in full invocation, the phone rings and Foster says, oh, it's her. Let me pick it up. So he has to get out of the circle, which is ridiculous. Gets out of the circle, picks up the phone, comes back with the phone. And we got that house, basically, from
That was the ritual.
everybody who wanted it. So I believe that our desire, also as a team, our desire, and then the wanting, right? It just got amplified in the ritual. That's why it happened so fast. But we prepared it back to the original idea. We did a lot of preparation way before, and we talked about it, and we were working already by then for a couple of months. And we were already a couple by then. You see, we were already in a relationship.
Well, you were not happy in Arizona. You absolutely wanted to go to Los Angeles.
Absolutely, it was totally boring. It was Sedona, Arizona, with everybody's cuckoo. I mean, it's very pretty,
No,
but
it's not cuckoo.
it's cuckoo. Okay, it was just, I thought, time to move on, and we both wanted to move on. So, but the speed by which everything happened was quite amazing. And not a surprise, because we put the work in, we were ready, we had the maturity, we had also ourselves, and we were in an agreement that that's what we want. before we even wanted. You see, we're going to talk a little bit about love spells and relationship spells.
And that was a prosperity spell.
Right.
And we needed prosperity for the next 20 years. We had to do a lot of work.
And we worked a lot.
We worked hard, and we also
Yes.
did a lot of ritual work
Yeah.
for prosperity.
Right.
And in the end, it worked out until COVID.
Right.
And that was kind of the stopgate.
Right.
And we decided to sell.
Right. You know, it was smart to do. It was really a good decision to do. But also, not only for us, but so many people, I think it was a good indicator that said, we give you a reset button. You see, it was a reset button to rethink, restructure, and give yourself a great new opportunity. And we were both individually also in our shifting years, so to speak. I'm in one right now, big one. But what we're going to emphasize a lot here is, in the end of the day, the timing was prepared and we were mature. We were also safe in who we were together, and we also brought confidence in who we are as individuals. So that worked quite nicely, I have to say, and we're continuing anyway. So again, Foster worked without me for how long? 15 years easy without me, 20 years before me. And we just got together and we continued, you see. Let's talk a little bit about
Love spells, you
love
said.
spells, love magic, relationship magic. Now, the biggest mistake you can make is to ask for somebody to come back who basically humiliates you or treats you bad. Then you deserve your misery. So that's not what we're talking about. It's not about bringing somebody back. We don't do that, and I don't recommend it. But timing and maturity, you would be surprised how many people want a relationship and are not ready to make room for it. They're not ready to make room for it. They are such complainers, critical,
And that's a contradiction to the ritual you just did.
Absolutely.
To get
Absolutely.
a person.
I want to be loved for who I am, but I cannot promise you the same thing. Guess what? Nothing will come, because again, spirit will not go and sieve through humanity to find somebody who can deal with you.
Well, often somebody will come for a session and I can actually see the person. I can see who they would meet, who would be great for them. I describe the person to them. I try to get them to have the feeling, the desire for that person. And then slowly, they get excited, whatever. I tell them, why don't you do a ritual or a prayer or something, an intention to get that person, now that you have an idea. Make an altar, try to draw them to you. And when it doesn't happen, it's because somewhere in there, there's no space for it.
Right.
They're in contradiction to it. Or I can't be alone for my family. I can't be single for my family or my friends.
Right.
That's
I
a
have
big
to take
issue.
care of my parents. My friends need me. I'm not ready yet. I still need to work on my body. We hear this a lot. I mean, the most crazy stuff, I tell
I'm
you.
not ready to share my space. I'm not ready
Right.
to live with somebody again.
What if I don't like somebody in the end? But again, you see, before you make a spell, and this is interesting in Judaism, by the way, in Kabbalah, in that kind of magic, they poo-poo on magic in general, because, that's who they are. But, of course, they have the love spells. But interesting enough, my rabbi said, we don't suggest magic to bring somebody or a spell or a prayer or anything like that. But once you have a relationship, you're almost obligated to magically protect the relationship because
To fortify it.
to fortify it, you see. So they put a lot of protection around marriages, connections, units in that sense. And trust me, they have a lot in the background, They don't say it, but they have it. So trust me on this. You need to really identify if you're willing and if you're ready to see yourself with somebody and to allow your growth and your maturity to melt with the other person. I mean, we're talking very idealistic concepts but you see, I take us as an example because the way we met, and you said it so often, we were both ready. I just came out of a relationship 6 weeks before I met you, you see, and that was a bad one. Not a bad person, but, we were bad for each other, and the result was just that's not what I want. You see, and the moment I clarified what I wanted, and it didn't become my main focus anymore, but in that one definition, I said, this is it or nothing. I'm not going to compromise, which I think for me is a very important aspect here. Are we now at aspect number 3 or 4? I don't remember anymore. But I think you have to really be in a place where you feel you deserve it. You deserve it. It's time for you to experience this, and you
Feel worthy.
You feel worthy. Yeah, that's the idea.
And you do all the practical measures beforehand.
Right.
Like we talked about Czestochowa,
Right.
where you go, you ask for a partner, and then they say, well, why don't you get a haircut? Why don't you
Right.
fix your teeth?
The
Why don't
divine
you
is
prepare
the
the way?
divine is very practical. You know,
Extremely.
we were sitting in this church, and in Czestochowa, very beautiful in Poland, and they have a black Madonna.
Yes.
They have a black Madonna there, very famous, by the way, which is not the Madonna, but that's a different.
And they pray to her.
And they pray to her. And of course, I was sitting there and looking at prayers. What do people pray for? And this, let's say, disheveled young man prayed for a girlfriend, or prayed for love, really, and said, please bring me somebody, you know, in that sense. But what I saw is the answer. The answer was, get your teeth fixed, get a haircut, use soap. I mean, he looked disheveled. He had like 3 teeth. He must have been 25. He had almost no teeth. I don't know many women who kind of get hot at toothless, stinky men. Just saying, bless you if you do. I just don't know them, and ew.
But she was very practical.
But the
Get
answer
your
was
teeth done.
the answer was very practical. Another woman prayed for her abusive husband to become normal and nice, and the answer was leave him. You see, and this is something you have to really keep in mind. Spirit will not come and fix something that is common sense. If you're too dumb, too occupied, too justified, too weak to understand that this is not healthy or this is not helping me, then really no spirit, no spell can help you.
There's an old story you told me about Mary, the mother of Jesus, when she was living in Malta for a time in an inn. And there was a woman there who was beaten by her husband.
Right.
And she was basically helping this woman to leave her husband. And that's really what also these angels give, or all these spirit.
Yeah.
Spirit gives very practical advice.
Very practical. And they always will say, and this is also in sessions, you see my sessions are usually quite practical. Why is it happening? How is it happening? And how you can change it.
To stand up for yourself, to have the courage.
Exactly,
believe.
exactly.
Or the courage to heal. Some people want to heal immediately.
Right.
And so if, they believe that, and if they trust the healer, whatever, in that moment, their faith instantaneously healed.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are wonderful spirits that help with that. Yeah. And that's happened with me many times. There are many instantaneous 100% healings in no time. And then there are many people who come who don't heal.
Right.
And that's their desire. They do rituals. They do everything for their healing. They go on the new moon and they have a candle and they're dissolving a disease on the new moon, which is quite a practice. And changing their idea.
I have an experience that I want to share with you and also with Foster, and I want his intake in this. I think interesting enough when people say, I need to overcome something. And even if it takes time, I think that Spirit is so intelligent that by making you include possibilities that you wouldn't consider in the first place. I mean, really spiritual people come to us who are not spiritual by nature, and they're not really open by nature. But here they are, and they want to achieve something. And I think that the whole process of the so-called problem is part of the solution. It's the long way of getting you to a place to accept your power. Yeah. So
people came to us to be famous, to be helped.
Yeah.
To achieve certain goals, to make a film, to be a major actress, whatever. So many people came, and many of them fulfilled their desires.
Absolutely.
They did the work, whatever. We helped them.
But, and now I'm using the word
clearing
but.
a path, opening roads.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But at some point, the human nature comes through and they start complaining. It's too much. I'm tired. It's getting difficult.
I don't know if I really want this.
Exactly. You see, and then it has to be taken away. Very simple. It has to be taken away. So there is a very important detail here. It's agreement or non-agreement. And you have to examine your spells. You have to examine your methodology. You have to examine your maturity. And I think then you have a great opportunity from a technical point to gather enough energy to break through into the reality and make it happen.
Well, now we want to move from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. And we've done a certain amount of candles and rituals, whatever, for this. And so far, we haven't been able to do it.
Right.
So do you have any ideas about why that's not happening?
Well, I think first of all, we have a very specific idea of what we want. And the thing is also, at least in our case, there's I put a lot of protection in these because, we had a fair share with realtors and with the whole buying and selling. And, we had something in prospect, but it turned out to be an overpriced, very low valued place. It looked very pretty. And we were almost ready to get it, but something just didn't feel right and didn't make sense. And then came the evaluation, and it was like a lot less than what the person wanted.
The appreciated value, yeah.
Absolutely.
Much less.
So also, this is also part of the magic. There was something protective about it, you see. And again, if a spell or if magic doesn't work out the way you want it, hopefully as smooth and as easy, everything is part of the process. And I think in the end, for what we want and what we need, we're being still, I think, guided to a certain place. And right now, we are being guided to people who help us out of the blue and who can do something out of the blue, and we are getting supported out of the blue. This is also part of the magic, basically. You see, there is a higher intelligence in a spell. I really believe this. It's not just, I light a candle, bring me this, and now it has to show up. There is a process of learning and a process of being tested as well, by the way. You see, definitely for me, that's always my little flaw, is that I feel I'm being tested. How much more often do I have to prove that I trust? But here I am. I try my best.
Well, you do a medicine wheel ritual. You walk the medicine wheel. If you start in the east or the south, wherever you're starting, and you're nurturing a specific idea, and you go around the medicine wheel. Usually it is to balance yourself.
Right.
It is to prepare yourself.
That's so important.
It is to clear yourself for something.
Yeah.
Before you're going to ask for that thing, or if you're going to ask for it in the wheel, you are in effect clearing yourself to get there.
We're going back to the first thing. You have to really look in what state of mind you are, because again, absolutely correct what Foster says. If you wait too long, if you're not in balance, at least in a place of acceptance, it is what it is. And now from here, let's do it. But if we go and wait really until the crap hits the fan, and you put this into a ritual, then the ritual has to clarify all that as well, which means a lot of the dynamic of the ritual will be taken over by, cleaning up basically instead of manifesting. So preparation is really everything. That's why we always say journaling, as boring as it sounds, is a really important process, especially in manifestation processes, because in the end of the day, if you're in a contradiction to it, then not that it's not happening, but rather the contradiction has to be included in the manifestation.
And to be true to yourself, to be honest with yourself is not easy in every moment of the day. So days in which you contradict that honesty, or you fall into a trap or something, then you have to, in fact, get out of that trap. And that takes a little time. And that happened many times in my life, right? I would always have somebody that I worked with that I really trusted, and then they would often behind my back betray me. They would say other things. And then the work would end. And then I would have to move house. I would have to move out of that whole dynamic with that person. And that happened twice. And finally, I never let anyone also be included in those relationships anymore. I didn't want anybody to give me a second-hand opinion, or, that person's being your mother and you should get rid of them. That happened to me. Or somebody, asked me, do you want to end this relationship with this person? We did some magic. And of course, the magic was very strong and I never spoke to that person again. But that was at a moment when I didn't want that person to affect my life. Because they had betrayed me, they had taken quite a bit of money, and whatever, and I wanted never to meet them. Now I feel that spell is ending. Many things are ending from before that were so exact.
Spells complete.
Those worked.
Spells complete the cycles.
And I've been
Absolutely.
very careful since then what kind of person I go to or what kind of spell I want, because often it works very carefully, very clearly and spontaneously.
Yeah.
So be careful what you ask for.
Literally, but don't be discouraged from asking.
No.
Because even Christ says, ask and it will be given. And it sounds so simple, but they're also describing ask and it's given when there's no gap between the asking and the receiving. That's why I so often when people say, how do people get super rich? This incredible wealth of the Elon Musks and the Bezoses. And I say always what I learned from my guide when he says they just don't ask for enough or they don't say no to more. They say, I'll take it. I mean, there's money. It's coming to me. Of course I'm going to take it. Or, yeah, I'll take it. You see, it's us, let's call mortals, who say we shouldn't ask for too much and not too much is good and so on. But you see, when we hold on to a belief like that and then we go into a spell and say, or a ritual or a process and say, now I want the opposite of this. But your conflict has to be included into the spell because you're bringing it with you. It's like a suitcase. So what Foster says in healing is you have to clarify the conflict and skip it so that you don't bring too much baggage into a spell or into a ritual or even just a mind technique. You see, I have people who do mind trainings and all that stuff, and they have to eliminate a lot of negativity first. Well, to a certain degree, because you can't focus too much on it, because you're including it into the solution. You see? So it's a very important thing, what Foster said, and I say very often, you have to make sure you are in a better place as much as you can to the best of your ability, not to be, hunky-dory happy. That's not, unless you are, then good for you. But to get at least to a place of neutrality, of balance, and take some time, which we'll go back to the idea of take your time before you initiate something on a cosmic level, because it's gonna go out. I remember the one thing in Silver Mind Control I never liked is they would say, if you don't like something that you said, just say cancel, cancel, cancel. And I can guarantee you, once it's out of your mouth and your head and your spirit, it's out. You cannot cancel something that has been, launched.
And we've tried that. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. I wish it would work, because then we would all be very happy and very healthy, very thin, very young, very rich. You get my drift. No, it doesn't work, you see.
Well, certain things have definitely pushed me in the direction of doing a ritual. For instance, when I was a shaman, learning in New Mexico, my house was filled with herbs. The whole ceiling was filled with herbs. There were trees everywhere, and I was doing roots. It was quite involved. But I had a friend who came to the house and he said, "What a dump you live in." And I looked at him, "What a dump I live in?" And it motivated me. So I started to change my whole perspective. People still came for healings, whatever, but I made the house look beautiful. And when they came back a year later or 6 months later, they said, "Wow, how this place has changed." But then I always questioned myself. I was very, very happy in my little dump. It wasn't a dump for me. It was a shaman's den.
Right.
It was a perfect place for healing. I don't care what other people think, but at that time, I cared because my own family was going to come visit me and they didn't understand this. So it was a motivating factor, and everything did change after that. And if I had probably stayed in that house, it would have continued to grow. But I left.
Yeah.
And I went for something more mature, something bigger that was not mine. So then rituals had a different flavor, because then I was entrapped in somebody else's world, somebody
Right.
else's house,
Right.
somebody else's money.
Right.
And that had a huge effect on me. And that was never very good for me.
It's interesting how, because I have also experience with people who want a successful life. And funny enough, instead of working for it and, let the success come through them, they say, I met a really rich guy. And
That happened to me.
Yeah. and I live a really, really luxurious life. But the fact is, and I'm telling you,
You don't own anything.
they don't own anything.
You're in a gilded cage.
They have to ask for every penny. They have no access to the cash. They are not included in businesses.
And then they'll
usually.
turn it around and say you lived off of them and that you manipulated them or whatever. That's what happened to me.
Right.
And so
But
when I left, it was, I need to recover from this relationship. I need freedom. I need my own place.
Yeah.
And the universe provided very quickly.
Right.
Because I left, immediately got a place. And that has happened every time we left somewhere. When we finally do leave, there's a place already ready.
Already.
That we haven't even
also,
seen.
It feels almost like a relief.
Yes.
A great sense of relief, when this happens. So we definitely both experienced that, you see.
Yeah.
But we both had our experiences where we take our friendships, by the way, and what Foster describes is a very intense friendship. In his friendship, there was a lot of wealth involved, and so the friend, offers a response of security. I can provide for you. And Foster wanted, I think in that time, you always say,
Expansion.
just expansion. I wanted to
Security.
expand.
Many centers around the world.
Right. He was ready for it, and he did it all by himself. But then comes somebody in.
I'll build you the centers. I'll do everything.
I'll
and
do
then
it
they
for
don't
you.
come through.
And then don't come through. And then, of course, they turn it against you, you see, because that's how psychopaths function, you see. Oral schizophrenia. They say something, do the opposite, contradict it, turn it around. Don't remember saying it, but it's your fault. So
Yes.
that is, I'm telling you,
That's
I
what
needed
happened.
35 years to figure this out. And there's more of those people. You marry them, you live with them, you give birth to them. Are you now happy? I tell you, there are these narcissists which basically can become an entrapment in this. So the thing is, when a spell provides you or a manifestation provides you with an opportunity to be supported, make sure that you're separating the necessities. You don't want to become imprisoned. And a prison is not security. We also have seen this, how often people end up in these very luxurious Fifth Avenue apartment lives with everything, or,
Because we did prosperity
shopping.
spells
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
positivity all the time.
But you
So we
see-
got the riches.
But you see, this is how then a spell manifested for them, is you are not capable of doing it on your own. You need to belong to somebody, or you need to be part
An
of somebody,
organization or something.
or anything, you see. And I think that is something that is in our psyche, or in your psyche, and it has to be included into the spell. These relationships, by the way, always end up on our sofas crying for sessions. We have a whole box of these cases. But that's what we're talking about, is what is included in the spell, what is included in the magic, what is included in the ritual. Examine it one more time. Really make sure that you are in a safe place when you do this.
Once you do the ritual, you have to accept all the opportunities that come to you. And they come sometimes fast and furious. And if you start being too selective, and you're saying, I take this, no, I don't want to take this. I'll take this job, but no, I don't really want that job. You're actually contradicting what you just did.
Right.
You must take every single opportunity that is given to
But
you after the ritual.
What Foster describes,
especially if it feels good.
Yes. What Foster describes is, again, back to you don't know what you want. You see, and that's what happens. If you have a clear plan, then opportunities arise and you will pick the most valuable for you. There's no big choosing from a menu. This is not a menu in a restaurant. But I think that, again, when you have no clue or a very vague idea how you want to experience this, then the universe will answer with multiple doors. And then it's really difficult, I think, without a clarity in your goal, to choose the appropriate door. So, again,
you have to work towards the ritual. That's another thing. Once you've done the ritual, you've got to make motions
it has to
towards
make
it.
sense. It has to make physical sense, absolutely.
And that's quite a thing. We did a vision boards, and then I imagined it, everything for our house, and then we started renovating the house, then it became so incredibly expensive. We didn't have the money anymore. You have to do more
Right.
prosperity rituals
See.
to pay for more renovations.
You see,
It became too
yeah.
much.
So it did work for us, but
Yes.
it did work also in a way where, hold on a second, because now it's getting out of control, you see.
We were inspired all the time. Change this. Now let's change the bathrooms. Let's change this.
Right.
That
And
was
we did.
prosperity.
And we did.
And we did it.
But we had to take a step back as well and look at our life and say, what do we really need? What is really important? You know, this is getting out of hand. So it's a sign of maturity to recognize, even for people like us, because, you know, it's very difficult to be objective with yourself. And sometimes you need a moment to step back and say, am I doing something that makes sense? You see? It's all about balance, isn't it?
Well,
in
you
the
do
end?
you do a ritual to get a house,
Yeah.
and then you rent the house for 2 years, and then the people say, we don't want to rent to you anymore. We want to sell the house because we want to make money.
Right.
And then you're basically kicked out of the house, and you have to do a new ritual for a new house.
Right.
But you're not quite ready to go.
Yeah.
And then it kind of drags, and it's difficult because
Right.
you have to get into that
You're in-
that feeling
Yes.
to get the new house.
You're including something that will make the outcome more difficult. So it's really important to be willing to say, you know, time to go on, time to move on, and be excited about the move. Because I think every move that we had, at least, we were excited. I mean, I moved across the planet. You know, it wasn't just around the corner. In order to be with Foster, I had to move from one place, from one continent to another. And trust me, changing was an understatement. But I was more than willing to do it. The more willing I was, the easier it went.
For
Okay.
instance, we wanted to protect our house, so I bought Christos a gin in a knife. And then the gin started to protect the house, and nothing ever happened to our
Never.
house. Because one time in my whole life, I had a very close friend, and while I was away on one of my tours, he said, I'm going to rent your house. And I know you don't know the guy who I'm renting the house with, but he's a performance artist. He's wonderful. You'll love it. So the guy comes into the house, and, you know, so excited that he got to stay there. It's, you know, because my houses are very creative. It's a shaman's house, so he's taking a lot of energy too. And then what happened? I came on the plane and I started throwing up on the plane. Coming back. And I arrive at the airport, I'm throwing up, and I said, what happened? This was a friend of mine, Luke Gatto. And he said to me, somebody, I don't know why you're throwing up. Maybe I'm going to check you. He was a healer, a homeopathic doctor. So we drove back, I walked to my house, everything was stolen. And the exact time it was being stolen is when I was throwing up. And I was so furious that I did a location spell in which I just started walking out of my house, and I walked, 2 miles, and there were all my possessions in front of me in an empty field. And I called the police, and the police wanted to confiscate. I said, no, I'm bringing all this stuff back. I'm getting a truck, and they're going to put it back in my house. And I did that, and I convinced the police, you know, this stuff
A
not to go.
shaman can track you. I'm telling you guys, don't cross Foster in this, because I've seen people who stole from him.
Terrible.
The first year, he said to me, you know, I'm going to this certain place and I have this certain organizer and translator, and there's never money. And the year I went actually with him, and I already did spells, protection spells around the business, because I knew that Foster was being stolen from.
Yeah.
It was being stolen from and everything. So we ended up in a situation in a little cafe, I think, where the guy started complaining. I lost the money, it got stolen, I can't pay you, and so on. So I just looked at him and said, you stole it, right? You stole it. I know you stole it. And just by looking at it, what happened was this moment of...
He was my translator.
It was this moment of no gap between what I knew and what was happening. And in that moment, he said, well, you know, I needed the money to open some shitty store he needed to open, and he used that money. So he's a thief, you know, he stole. That's the idea. But this is what happens a lot with Foster. When something like this happens, he tracks the people. Didn't you track people who never
I
paid
had
you?
two
Fascinating
organizers
story.
in England who were, you know, organizing all my work there. Just for 1 year. They came all the way to Santa Fe to convince me that I needed a new organizer, whatever. So I went back to England. I let them organize for me, and in the end, they paid me nothing. They took $25,000. They ran to LA, I guess, or somewhere. I didn't know where they ran. So I did a locator spell again. I got into an airplane from a locator spell. and I just followed wherever I was going. And I ended up at the Getty Museum, and they were on the tram with me to get to the thing. And I pinned him to the ground, and I said, "What are you doing?
Where's my money?
Where's my money?" And I realized they were drug addicts. They were just, they were
Thieves.
thieves.
These people are thieves.
And I looked them straight in the eye, and I just told them exactly what I thought. And that was the end. I
Yeah.
lost that 25,000 and I left.
Yeah.
And, I've lent money to people, whatever, and they never pay back and they don't remember. So then I learned never to lend money to people.
There you go.
But the locator spells always work. Again, I lent money to somebody, I did a locator spell, I saw them again the next day, right after the locator spell. There they were in whatever, Whole Foods. And they, again, didn't remember that they had stolen this money.
Yeah.
Because I had done a ritual in which anybody who owes me money will now give me back money. And that was also part of when we moved to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
The man in the house had been in a past life a brother of mine who had cheated me out of inheritance, and in the end, he's the one who owned the house, and he let us, have it. So that was incredible.
Yeah.
When you
There's
do
many-
these things,
there's-
you did things
yeah.
to protect
Oh, yeah,
us,
yeah, yeah.
to make
Of
sure if there's anybody out. You
I
always do that.
I always do that. I always, and I don't need to say it. I think the thing is the spells that I do about protection for us, especially him. Trust me, you don't want me to teach them to you. You don't. Trust me, you don't. Because I learned my protection spells from people who go after your families, not after you. They destroy everyone around you to teach you a lesson. And this is how I learned it. You don't want to cross me, knowingly or not. But it happened a couple of times. And then what happens is that, again, this feeling of protection, it's not just a feeling, it is a real entity, takes over the ritual. And I always say, should not have crossed me or him, you see. So in that sense, you understand, people love to steal from you. They love to steal emotions, feelings, love, relationships. It's called and so on and so on. If you let them and you forgive them and it happens, no ritual can help you. You see, there is no way to fix something like this, right? Unless you want to live with a zombie, which you also can do. But again, what an effort. I think the moment you have to waste candles on somebody who's not worth the wick, you have a problem, okay? Then you're a problem. But when you say, let me reset my value, my maturity, and how I choose to be, and, coming to your senses to some degree, that I think is, again, the first thing that we discussed about. Use the time you have, clarify your maturity, make sure that what you want has room, makes sense in your life, and build around the worthiness of it. And then choose a system, we haven't talked about this yet, choose a system that responds to you. I know people who do voodoo. You cannot do voodoo. You have to be it's a close practice. You cannot take some black candles and call on something and that's it, because you will awaken something, but you don't use a close practice or don't use something you've never even touched before. Unfortunately, the internet is full of that stuff, and people get their tips from TikTok now. Nothing against it. There's great people out there, but be careful and have common sense what ritual you use. And ultimately, the best ritual you can use is the one that feels for you the most safe, the most healing, the most loving, and it shouldn't stress you out. When a recipe, I heard this, I had this guy, let me tell you, once, he said, I'm doing the original ritual to Abramelin, which is months and months of a process, but unfortunately also he lived in a complex, with many apartments. So he was beaten up on a regular basis. So I said to him, you're always bloody when I see you. What are you doing? He says, the ritual demands that I blow my horn at 5 a.m. from the balcony 16 times, something like that. And of course, the neighbors beat him up, you see. But he was dedicated to it. But you see, if you have to go through this, what kind of outcome will you have? You know what I mean? Unless you feel that victimizing your neighborhood and, hijacking them with your trumpeting is worth it. But you see, you really have to be very careful. So again, there is no knowledge safe anymore. I had workshops where my workbooks were literally taken one by one, page by page, and were printed without permission. You know, can't do that. That's called stealing. You're a thief. That's the idea. It's another thing to be inspired and be referenced to, which we do, of course, because we mention people we admire and we refer to them. But it's astounding how often that happens, and people don't feel they did something wrong, because I came to a workshop and I paid for it, and I have this workbook, and I can do with this workbook what I want. You cannot. It says copyright on it. Just saying. So don't do that stuff.
Well,
you
we
know?
asked often for knowledge, for enlightenment,
Right.
for a very clear understanding of a certain text.
Insight.
And we would do a ritual. And then so many sources, things would just show up on the internet.
You cannot
We would
believe-
just meet people, we would get ancient books. Christos ended up, really researching things, all because of these rituals that
Absolutely. I just asked for, I want truth and understanding and common sense. It has to make sense. I don't want to study some text that was, rewritten 50 times. And I've been guided, trust me, to places you can't even imagine they exist. And this is where I get a lot of our...
That was the most successful
Insight.
rituals, actually, that we did.
Absolutely.
More than prosperity. It was
And
mostly protection.
I
of us.
really agree with this, and I really believe also, because I am a teacher, and also everything around me is about teaching. I think that my most successful rituals were about knowledge, understanding it, learning it, speaking it, and recycling it for people. I've done this pretty much all my life. So I think somebody who is a natural businessman, like Foster, for example, is a traditional businessman. He has such a good placement of Jupiter in his chart for it. He can do easy success spells and so on, right? So that will work easy for him. I'm more of a teacher, so that works easier for me. So you see, I think that when you have your special taste, your certain flavor, that rituals in that will be much, it's like Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter was, if it wasn't for Hermione Granger, the girl, he would be dead in the first 20 minutes of the show. She saves his butt like all the time, but she's also smart, a great student, has already read a lot. So she literally saves the two main characters throughout the books, basically, like every day, you see, because of knowledge. So I think knowledge,
very important.
if you want to achieve something, ask for knowledge, because I ask for knowledge to understand out of myself, to create out of myself, to be part of the understanding of what I'm manifesting, not just an extended, hopefully extended version of success. It happened to me, but I don't really deserve it, because I can't sing, I can't dance, but here I am having a record label, and
But, when I first went to Hopi land, I had no idea what to expect. So, of course, I did a ritual because I don't know the Hopi. And so I drove there to see Grandmother Carolyn. This was a long time ago. And I stayed in her house, and I was learning, herbs and doing basically farming. And when I came, I didn't even know that the traditional gift was corn. And I just bought a ton of corn with the husks, everything. And that's what I presented to her. So she really liked that. And I used to pick up hitchhikers. I was quite young. I was picking up hitchhikers on the res. So as I was there on the Hopi reservation, every time I picked up a hitchhiker was a shaman. And each shaman was always going to a dance. So I would go with the shaman and accompany them to the dance. They say, hey, you want to come with me to the dance? So I would go, and that's how I got to see the Hopi dances, and that's how I started to get involved in what they were doing, and just being very respectful. And that was, in fact, to me, a very successful ritual of magic, because it enlarged my whole perspective. And then as I was driving home, I saw spirits on the side of the road. Spirits were still with me, all around me. And of course, I met a shaman in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico, and that was the beginning of the next story.
Right. It's like a link, like a chain, right? I really think that a really successful ritual, in no matter what direction, if it's created with confidence and with value and with love and with worthiness, will create a chain link of synchronicities. And sometimes, I did these rituals and they feel like one feels like 20. You know, it has a long-term effect.
We did a ritual to be able to meet a shaman, along our way. And a friend of ours, as part of the ritual, she had a almost rape. And she demanded that she see the shaman. So for us, it was about, finding enlightenment, discovering ourselves, healing ourselves. And in the end, we ended up with a shaman. And we went through purifications, we went through all sorts of things as a result of an act of violence.
Right.
So you never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You never know how you're going to get there. And there are amazing tests.
And that's, I think,
along the way.
That's what Foster means with be open for the opportunity, but be discerning. What makes in all these opportunities the most sense for you? Guys, your time is valuable. I just want to say again, like, subscribe, and share. Because I have friends on YouTube who say, you always forget to say it, so they make me little notes.
You also always say, for our people that come to us, you only want a certain level of people, and you do a ritual in which we only get a certain level
of people, absolutely.
And the rest of them we deny that.
Yes.
You can't come to our work.
Absolutely. You see, and that is the freedom and the luxury we have. We can't afford it financially because we should be able to just let everybody in. But the thing is, we made a pact that we want to help people who are willing, who are open, who are interested, who don't think this is a joke. Because we take this you're coming into our lives basically, and we want to feel respected, and we want to feel that it's worth it with somebody. Doesn't work always out, by the way, but to a great extent,
it does.
That's exactly what it does. And that is the freedom and the luxury that we chose in this life. We could have been we might reach this level, but we don't want to compromise and allow characters who just don't belong in our line of work. And that is just the right we take.
And it never worked when we compromised. When we let in somebody who was not ready for this work, never
Terrible.
worked out.
Terrible. Absolutely.
Was a disaster.
So we have to learn from our mistakes. And that is a mistake. So guys, a little bit what we're doing. We are in the midst of moving, but we're also just a few days away from our second Egypt tour, which is, I think, sold out, which is amazing, and we love it, and I don't care what people said. It is on a different level. We are looking forward to Power Places and Terry Weiss and Emil, whom I had to beg to be our guide again, because this is the man who gets you to places normal people will not go through. He's been a blessing to us, really, from what we were allowed to see the last time in March when we went.
Egypt really shakes up your life.
Egypt will reveal the truth. So we're going to Egypt. So I don't know if we're going to have an opportunity to do a podcast from Egypt. But wouldn't that be fun?
Try.
We're going to try, maybe in bits and pieces. Maybe,
from our boat.
Or from the temples, or from the
temples.
We'll see what we can do, okay? And also, we want to let you know what we're preparing. I'm preparing the Universal Mastermind Inner Eye Training, which is the advancement of all my mind trainings, of all my research that I did. I'm recording it for a Zoom, for a Vimeo, so you will be able to get this. I tried to rush it. I don't like it rushed, so we're going to take some time. And I think around December, 1st of December, I can release it for you guys. The training will be then translated into languages on Zoom. We're going to do Zoom live classes. So for those who don't speak English and don't have much value of the recording, you will get it through the live classes, basically. It's all prepared already, so get ready for our next schedule. And get ready for Season 5, Mind-Blowing. The Inner Circle, you guys know.
New Vimeos that are coming out.
New Vimeos are coming out, new subjects, new ideas, new concepts.
From our school.
From our school.
The Shamanic Institute.
Of Shamanic Studies. So we have a lot to do. We see a lot of you in Egypt. We can't wait to see you guys in Egypt. And I can tell you it's going to be mind-blowing because it's amazing. And please don't forget, our next tour, 2023, is going to Japan, with a fantastic guide, Harumi. Japan is the place of healing, of spirituality, of refinement, of energy. It's quite amazing there. We have a huge thing planned. So
And
have a
then
look.
we have a tour of Crete after that.
And then we have a tour of Crete
And
after
the year
that.
after that is Kenya in Africa.
So 2024 is Kenya. Never been to Africa. That would be great.
I love Africa.
We are nuts, but it's amazing, and we would love to see you go nuts with us on these tours. So we send you a lot of love, and thank you. Like, subscribe, share. You do it. Do it now. Do it. Press the button. And annoy everybody you know, even if they don't speak English. Please tell them to download it and support us in this, okay? Because we love to connect with you like this. And we let you go until we meet you again next time, hopefully from Egypt, okay? Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.